Welcome to the Digital Journey Podcast. Every successful online business entrepreneur has an incredible story to share about their journey to success. Listen and learn from top digital mavericks and online business insiders as they share their secrets so you can live the lifestyle you deserve. Your pilots for today's journey, Rob Fortney and Nick Nimmin. Welcome aboard, passengers. The digital journey begins now.
Welcome to the Digital Journey Podcast, navigating your online business journey. I'm Nick Nimmin, and today we're talking with Greg from EmpireFlippers.com. This show is going to be a little bit different than the rest of the shows that you have listened to, but we're going to get into more details about that here in a bit. Greg, how are you? Welcome back to Chiang Mai.
Hey Nick, yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's always good to be back in Chiang Mai. Doing good as always, and you know, I always feel like when I come to Chiang Mai, it's always a little bit too short because I have just too many friends. So I always feel like I'm like give you the silent shoulder to one person that wants to meet up. But
sure.
It's been good being back for the weekend with the Nomad Summit. You gave a great talk there as well. One of the best talks I hear.
No, thank you.
Yeah, it's good to be back. How you been, man?
I've been okay. You know, for the people that are listening to this right now, you know, there's a little bit of a lead in. You know, as anybody that's listening to this right now, you've probably already noticed that Rob is not here in this show right now, and the reason for that is Rob got into an accident here in Thailand on his motorbike, and he was injured fatally, unfortunately. So this is actually going to be the last episode of the show, but in memory of Rob, we're going to talk about the journey. We're going to talk about how important it is to be in control of what it is that you're doing, how important it is to, you know, to take the chances, you know, be it to be a digital nomad or to do anything really that it is that you're trying to do in your life. You know, as a tribute to him, we're going to basically just talk about the digital nomad lifestyle, because that's something that to Rob was an extremely important thing, and that he was very happy, you know, with those choices that he has made. And that's basically what the show is going to be today. So so with that somber part down, because I don't want the show to be a drag, right? And Rob wouldn't either, right?
Yeah.
So so basically what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about we're going to start with Greg's story, what got him into this, and we're going to talk about basically, you know, some of the troubles that you might be going through right now on your digital journey, how you can overcome some of that stuff, and again, why it's important to, you know, to make those moves.
Yeah, you know, well, one of the reasons why I suggested this kind of topic to you, Nick, is like you just said, Rob, like, you know, loved this stuff. He loved inspiring other people.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of my story, I wouldn't be here where I am right now, you know, as a marketing manager of Empire Flippers, traveling around the world, if there weren't people like Rob out there producing content like this, because this is what really got me through my day. And, you know, we only have a few decades here on this world, and we should go and do what we want as much as possible, especially now with the internet the way it is, what the opportunities are out there. There's just no reason why you can't do what you want if you work for it, you know, if you work just a little bit differently. So you feel free to like interject if you have questions, but my story is, you know, I start off in the oil field. I'm from Alaska. You know, when I was in 8th grade, actually, I convinced my dad to, because I was one of those kids, weird kid who would watch infomercials.
Nice. That was your entertainment. You know, like, hey, I'm not messing with cartoons. I'm into infomercials.
Show me about this cutlery, and I can like show me these government secrets. I, you know, the guy with a question mark suit back in like the early 2000s. I love that shit, man. And so I was always a night owl, and when the cartoons ended, the infomercials would come on, and I thought those were fascinating. And when I was in 8th grade, I was already pretty set on the idea that college wasn't for me. I didn't want to do that. And in Alaska, you either go to college or you become a roughneck on an oil rig. So those were kind of my options. And I convinced my dad to buy me this AdWords course. It was like, I don't know, like $500. Like I still remember the website, ericstips.com. Probably one of the oldest bloggers in the world.
Shout out
now.
to Eric's Tips.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still blogging out there, but he's the guy who kind of got me on this road. And Dad bought the course. He believed in me, and I failed him. I lost all the money because he gave me some money for the AdWords account to start trying to do some affiliate marketing. I had no idea what I was doing, you know. And fast forward a few years, graduated high school. I became an oil field roughneck. Did 6 years in the fields in Alaska, North Dakota, and Gulf of Mexico.
So really quick. So you were working on oil rigs in Alaska?
Yeah. So
Nice.
every 2 weeks, I'd fly up to the Arctic Circle and do my 12 to 18 hours a day. We called them towers. Usually it's 12 hours, but something went wrong, which is often, and then it was longer. And it's funny. I was always covered in mud and oil and all the chemicals, all sorts of stuff, and our hydraulic pump would break, and I'd be the guy who had to fix it. The guy who just learned what a wrench was, basically.
Oh, wow.
I'd open up the manual. It's all in Austrian. I'm like, well, this is great. This picture looks like it goes. This item looks like it goes here according to this picture. Let's turn it on. I hope it works. So during my time in the field, in the oil field, my friends were off into college. They thought it was crazy for not going to college, and I was reading about all this stuff, all these this nomad lifestyle, if you will. Like niche pursuits, authority hacker, pretty much anything I could get my hands on about online business. I was buying courses left and right. Justin, one of the founders of Empire Flippers, when I first came on board, he was always like, "Oh, you're a bit internet marketing, aren't you?" Because I knew the digital product sales funnels, hook, line, and sinker. Like, oh, it's $497, but
Sure.
So I was always reading about that stuff and failing a lot. Like I failed, I created all sorts of affiliate sites. I tried to do an SEO agency. Just nothing was really working. And, when you're working 90, 100 hours a week in the oil field and you're in the Arctic Circle and you don't always have the most stable internet connection, it can be really hard to get something going, especially if you have to talk to clients or anything like that. And my roughneck crew, they used to always call me Google Cash. So like a pump would break or something, be like, "Hey, Greg," or Smeagol. My oil field nickname was Smeagol.
Okay.
And how I got that nickname was really stupid, but I liked the nickname, so I kept it. And "Hey, Smeagol," or "Google Cash, come fix this pump." How's Google doing today?
If you don't mind backing up on that, because you said how you got the name was stupid, you mind giving some insight into how you actually got that name?
So people who anyone who's worked in like blue collar trades are probably pretty familiar with this, but in the oil field especially, almost everyone gets a nickname.
Okay.
And I've had several over my years, but Smeagol was the one I had the longest. And how I got it was standing on these mud pits. We just got done cleaning them, and these, the pits are full of the caustic and all this burning soda beads and stuff like that, really nasty stuff. And I was talking to my buddy Carl, and he happened to be a big Lord of the Rings fan, and I'm a big literature nerd, and we started talking about Tolkien. I was like, "Oh, what's interesting about Tolkien? He's like this linguist, and he thought the most beautiful word in the English language, for some linguistical reason, was the combination of the words cellar door." No idea why he thought that. It's just a fun fact I knew about Tolkien. And another guy who's in on the conversation listening to me, he's like, "That's it." I'm like, what's it? He's like, "That's your name." Like, "What are you talking about?" Like, "Your name's Smeagol." Because he just knew Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings, and he saw the movie Smeagol.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
got it.
It's a stupid thing. And I just kept saying it, and eventually got transformed to Samurai Smeagol, because this one guy threw a knife at me and I caught it.
Oh, nice.
There was this insane dude who worked in the pits. We called him Kung Fu, because he's this ripped Irish guy that you go into this room on the rig called the pits, and you'd be like doing pull-ups on this pipe, and he's like, "In order to talk to me, you have to do 80 pull-ups." I was like,
"Oh my gosh!"
All right, Kung Fu, I'm not going to do that, but we have work to do. And one day he came into my unit and he threw a steak knife at me, and I caught it in my hands, and he's like, "Oh, it's true what they say. You are a wizard."
Nice.
Like, what are you talking about?
Why did he throw a steak knife at you?
He's just a crazy oil field guy.
Okay, all right. I won't even dig into that one, because
he was a crazy dude. I remember him when I was 18. I met him the first time, and then I ended up working with him again when I was like 24 or 25. And the first time I met him, he had to leave the island, and I asked him, like, "Hey, where did Kung Fu go?" He's like, "Oh, he stopped taking his meds, so he started seeing shadow people." Like, he was talking to me about shadow people the other day. You work with all sorts of like weird people in the oil field. It's like the weirdest amalgamation of people. You have these incredibly intelligent engineers studying like magnetic anomalies down a hole and doing all this crazy stuff. And then you have roughnecks like me catching steak knives for a guy named Kung Fu, all in like the same area. So it's a pretty interesting stuff. But yeah, so I during pretty much any break I could do, like my boss, he would used to come into this pump room I was in, and we weren't allowed to read, obviously, but I would have my Kindle on my phone. I'd be reading about internet businesses, all that stuff, and he'd come in like, "Oh, Smeagol, what are you doing? If you got time to lean, you got time to clean." And so I was always hiding so I could learn more about online business. And eventually got to this point where I'd failed so much. I actually, we talk about failure a lot, like dips, like it can be a really depressing journey when you first start off. Even once you get going, it can be depressing, like you get these setbacks and stuff. And one of the things that happened to me was I just failed so much. I started having this thought that, like, sometimes a person who wants to play basketball doesn't get to play in the NBA. Like, sometimes a person wants to start an online business.
The doubt started creeping in.
Yeah, there's no way I can do this. I failed so many times. My friends think I'm ridiculous. They all just think I'm crazy. So I started writing articles for people because I knew, okay, well, I might not be able to build a profitable website, but I know I can write fast. And I know there's a huge need in the SEO world for writers because SEO people hate writing stuff, right? So I started off writing 1 cent per word articles, and I was able to eventually got up to 2 cents per word.
Baller.
Baller status. So I'd work my 12-hour shift in the oil field, and then we'll do 3 to 4 hours a day writing PBN articles. For those out there who don't know what a PBN article is basically a fake website that these SEOs buy to put links to their money sites, but those sites still need content, right? So usually those are like the cheapest content because they don't want to spend money on good content for sites like that.
Sure.
I was just pumping them out, man. And it's funny, one of my clients, he found out what I did because I'd probably written like 100 plumbing articles for this guy, like Plumbing Ohio, every city in Ohio, the same article on plumbing. And he was like, man, if I was doing that, I'd be so burnt out. I was like, man, I've been burnt out for years. You still got to work though.
Yeah, that's true.
Change, just because you're burnt out,
Right.
And I was in debt too from buying all those expensive info product courses. That a lot of them were just pure garbage.
So basically, what you would do is you would throw those on a credit card. So you would say, "Hey, this is so important to me. I really want to learn this so bad that I'm going to throw this on my credit card, and then I'll make it up on the back end once I go through this course and I learn how to make that money."
Yeah,
right?
and there was always that copywriting line, like invest in your future. This is how much a college costs, and all that stuff. And I was like, yes. I had the right mindset. Buying the wrong courses,
sure.
And maybe not doing the right work ethic too, because those feelings of doubt would like destroy my momentum, right? And when I started writing these cheap quality articles, eventually all those clients that led into like bigger articles. So soon I was like ghostwriting for people that were like fairly well known in the SEO space, and I started getting my confidence back. Like, holy shit, if I can keep doing this, like, there's no reason why I can't start my own Amazon affiliate site or whatever, so I started getting this weird gritty determinism about everything. Like, I'm just going to fucking pump out these articles until I get it,
right. Right until my fingers bleed.
Yeah. And what ended up happening was I signed up for the Empire Flippers newsletter, and this is like probably like 6 or 7 months into me switching from trying to build something to just writing for people.
Okay.
And I signed up for the Empire Flippers newsletter because I had the gritty determinism. I'm going to build this Amazon affiliate site, sell it, and get out of debt. That was my goal. And so they sent out this email saying like, "Oh, we're looking for a content marketing pro." I was like, well, that's certainly not me, but I am so nihilistic about everything right now. I'm going to apply anyway. Whatever. Throw my hat into the ring. And surprisingly, they gave me a call. And at this time, I wasn't on the oil rigs anymore. So I was in an office, still technically in the oil field, and basically I would go into the office 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and the first week I'd work noon to midnight. Second week I worked midnight to noon, and I just kept switching on that. So
I bet that's horrible on your brain.
Oh,
in your body. Just that constant switching, never falling into like a good sleep pattern and all of that stuff. I bet that's a nightmare on your brain.
It sucked, man. I gained probably like 20 or 25 pounds from that job because I wasn't doing physical labor now. So the room I was in too was like had no windows because like top secret stuff at Halliburton where we were managing rigs around the world. So my job would be like when solar flares hit the earth, they would throw off all these oil rigs constantly, and I had to correct their azimuths with
what is an azimuth?
So azimuth is like the direction that the drilling is going.
Okay.
So like if they're saying like, oh, we're going to the left, and a solar flare hits, their monitors say we're going up. Like, well, that's not right. It could like really throw things off. So we have these observatories around the world that would correct like that the azimuth on like a microsecond basis. It's just always taking readings so we can correct for where the trajectory of it was going. And yeah, it was an interesting job. Like, it sounds more complex than it was, but I mean, most of my job is really copy and paste.
Sounds more complex than it was. And
oh no, sorry. I mean,
yeah, I'm like, you're
simpler.
like dot taking like well, yeah, even with that, you know, with it being simpler, it's like, you know, you're taking, you know, the effects of the sun and you're like recalculating in like microseconds in order to, you know, correct all this stuff. It sounds, yeah, definitely sounds complicated.
My team, we always use a joke like we had to write a job process for the new guy, and so I just wrote in 72 size font Control-C plus Control-V, because it was just like, you know, the software would spit out most of the stuff for us, right? The coolest part about that job was every day I would get an email about the weather on the sun, which I thought was kind of cool.
Oh, nice.
And but anyways, so yeah, I applied for this content marketing position while I was working at that job. I worked my 12 hours, and I had my interview with Justin Cook. I go to my house. I live pretty close to the office, so go to my house, like take a shower, put on a button shirt, like, you know, everything. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be crazy. Because I had tried to apply to all these marketing agencies in Alaska, because I've always been really passionate about marketing, and it was always like, you know, I go talk to them like, oh, what's the internet? I actually had this social media agency. I told them all about SEO, and we convinced them to sell SEO packages. And then they were like, sorry, but SEO is such a new marketing strategy. Like, what are you talking about? SEO is the oldest marketing strategy. It's like from 1995. Like, what kind of agency says that?
Right.
But so I was really excited because this is like because I don't have a college degree or anything, you know. So my opportunities were limited for a stupid reason, you know, just like, oh, you don't have this piece of paper, so you're obviously not qualified for, even if your degree had nothing to do with the job, right? I always think about my FedEx trainer who had a master's in theology. You know, like, how is that helping the logistics training in this office? But anyways, so I get on the interview with Justin, and he asks me some really hard questions. I don't know, like, if you've ever been interviewed by Justin. I'm pretty sure you've interviewed him, but he can be a pretty hard interviewer. And like, I had this blog at the time that was like kind of recording my progress. And I started the blog before the depression hit in, and then once I started writing, I was too busy to ever keep it up to date. So I had all these high and lofty goals on this blog that I had never achieved, you know. And he's like, you know, you seem to know a lot about internet marketing, so why have you failed so much? Like,
and you're like, wow.
He's like, you're kind of like faking it till you're making it. And I told him, like, yeah, that's the way it looks, but it certainly wasn't the intent. I wasn't planning on failing. But yeah, so I thought I bombed that interview, actually. I was like, oh shit, I guess I'm stuck in the oil field. And I think it was about like a week later, Justin hit me up again for a second interview, which I was really shocked by. This time I would have Joe, the other co-founder, on there as well. You know, I'd work my 12-hour shift. I go back to to my house to do the Skype interview, and Joe is on there, Justin's on there. Justin gives me like a private message on Skype right before the call begins, like, "Hey man, I really like you. Don't donk this up." Like,
you're
shit,
like,
no
okay, well now the pressure's on,
yeah,
right?
like, oh man, you know, and so I do that interview. It went, I think, considerably better, and yeah, and like about a week and a half, or maybe close to a month actually. So I thought I didn't get the job. I get this email from Justin, and Justin likes trolling people a little bit in certain aspects. So he wrote this email that like looked just like a copy and paste email, like, oh, so sorry, we went with another candidate kind of email. But at the end of it, it was like this all caps letters, "You're hired." Nice. Like, oh shit. And so that was crazy. Like, he started sending me all this information I would need to start traveling. And you know, I thought I was actually going to the Philippines at first, which is a common misconception with EF, that we're all based in the Philippines, which couldn't be further from the truth. You know, we're all remote all around the world. But it turned out I was going to Vietnam, and I was a little scared on that because of the Vietnam-American War. Like, you know,
now let me ask you this. Okay,
yeah.
So you got that email from him, and it said that you're hired. So basically, you're trying to get into the online marketing space anyway, so that you can live a different type of life, and you're not stuck in Alaska. You're not stuck on the oil field thing. So when you got that, and you realized that, hey, this is like, you know, this is real. This is happening right now. He's sending me all of this information about all of the travel documents I'm going to need and all that stuff so that I can go to all of these different places. What was going on in your brain? What were you thinking?
So this is, I was actually full of anxiety. You know, this is like the dream job for me, right? This is something, not only is it in marketing, which is what I love, but it's also in a niche that I love because what we do at Empire Flippers, where people buy a business or sell a business, like that literally can change someone's life. You know, we had people sell a business where they raised the money to adopt a child. We had someone buy a business and they left the 9-to-5 grind. You know, and
we've had people on this show that have sold sites through you, and the same exact thing, to where it's like, this has completely changed my life. This has completely changed the way that I think about online business. This has completely changed like every aspect of the way that I operate. So absolutely.
Exactly. That's why I'm so passionate about what I do now. But like when I got the job opportunity, I actually told my best friend, he's been like my closest friend since first grade, and he was like, all like, oh man, you must be so excited. You must be so excited. I was like, no, man, I'm like freaking out. He's like, what do you mean you're freaking out? I was like, I don't know if I should take it. Like, what do you mean you shouldn't take it? I was like, well, I don't think I have enough skills. The doubt, right? It started creeping back in. Like, I'm just a PBN article writer. Like, I can't be a content marketer for this brokerage.
You start getting that imposter syndrome. Coming in on you.
It was pretty rough. And I almost didn't accept the job actually. And because of this, because it's like, oh man, I don't know. Like, I'm so entrenched in my house. Like, if I leave this oil field job, which is the sweetest job I've had in the oil field, even though it doesn't pay as well as the other stuff, at least I'm not around chemicals and stuff all the time. If I leave this job, go to Vietnam, and I prove I'm a failure, just like I think, they fire me. Justin told me if I did get fired, at least they'll buy my ticket back. But what am I going to do? I have a house mortgage, I have debt, I have responsibilities. Like, what am I going to do? And my best friend, he told me, Greg, he's in China at the moment. He's up in Guangzhou. He's like, Greg, if you don't take this job, I will go into debt to buy my ticket back to Alaska. I will chop off your legs. Like, okay, well,
so that's I'm kind of forced into it now.
It's a pretty serious threat. So I pulled the trigger. I sold everything I owned, and except for my house, I still own my house. And flew out to Vietnam. So that was kind of my story. It was nuts, man. It's been a surreal ride. I've been with EF for almost 2 years, and it's interesting because all the people like Rob who had these blogs that I was reading in the oil field, who inspired me to keep on going. It was like I get so depressed, and then I read this new blog post or this new case study, and just like, wow, that's awesome, inspire me. I started meeting those people, because they're all out here, right? They're in Chiang Mai, they're in Saigon, Manila, all these different places. And the most surreal moment so far was when my buddy Tung Tran from Cloud Living, who I used to read his blog all the time on the oil rigs, he started asking me for some advice. I was like, oh, this is super weird. Nice. So that was very cool. And now, I've gotten to travel around the world, like Colombia, all over Southeast Asia, going to conferences. I was able to speak at conferences, get to meet people like you, Nick, and work with people like you. It's been quite the journey.
So. Yeah. So when you were arriving, you're actually getting on the plane, and you're like, you know what, this is real. I've made that decision. I'm getting on the plane. You're sitting on the plane. Plane's taking off. You're like, this is completely real. What's going through your mind at that moment? Are you like still freaking out, or are you are you past that and you're thinking like, okay, I can do this. I'm gonna give it a shot. I mean, you're obviously giving it a shot, but are you still freaking out? Are you kind of coming to terms with it at that time?
The freak out didn't end until a few drunken conversations with Justin. Actually.
Nice, amazing what alcohol can do. Yeah.
Justin. There's this quote on leadership that I really like. And I think Justin and Joe both emulate this really well, and hopefully the whole EF team emulates it too, because I think it's really important. And that quote is, a true leader will allow you to fail, but won't allow you to be a failure. It's like one of my favorite quotes. Nice. I don't know who said it, so you could just say I said it, I guess.
That's a great quote though. Because like in that situation, like when you are, working with somebody or something, and, like everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes bad decisions sometimes. Sometimes things just don't end up working out, and as somebody that is a leader, that is their thing to kind of be like, okay, hey, I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna bring you back up. And help you through this.
So I just had those years of doubts in my head and depression, all this trash in my head, basically. Like, you're not good enough, all that stuff. Justin and Joe both punched that right out of me over the next couple months. Sure. I did a lot of growth, I was able to power through it. But I used to have a pretty serious girlfriend. She was like basically my fiance, and
that's pretty serious. Yeah,
pretty serious.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Like at the point, her and I had been broken for years at the point I got this job, but I didn't talk to her in forever. She's like a fairly toxic person, but she can like calm me down at moments of stress. So I actually like contacted her like, hey, I need, like right before I board on the plane, and luckily she wasn't in one of her fouler moods, so she helped me talk through my stress and like made me feel better about the whole situation, right? But yeah, man, it was crazy going to Saigon, like you know, being part of all of this. Like, this is real, like this is really happening. And you know, now, like, just a couple months ago, I was at the Matt Dignity's SEO conference that you threw here in Chiang Mai, and I gave a speech at Food for Thought. It was like a 35-40 minute speech, whatever, about buying and selling an affiliate site. And after I gave the speech, I had these guys come up to me, start buying me beers, wanting to take selfies with me. Then I was in Maya Mall, like it was Halloween time, I believe, so we were looking for a Halloween costume, a few friends of mine. And this guy just comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder, like, hey, man. I'm like, oh, hey. He's like, great speech. And then just walked off like, whoa, that was weird.
Nice. You know, and I can say, because, you know, like you're in that situation, so you don't get the outside view of, you know, like what people are saying really. Yeah. But like when I saw you at the Nomad Summit, and you're like, you know, walking around the Nomad Summit and stuff, like people are like queuing up to, you know, try to talk to you, and people are like, you know, pointing, you know, like, hey, you know, there he is. So it's like you've went from the person that's in the oil field that's sitting there trying to find a solution, trying to find a way out, to that person that other people are looking up to in terms of, you know, like, hey, you know, this guy's doing it, he's part of this, he's, you know, doing that whole thing, and they're like trying to reach out to you now. You know, how awesome is that?
It's awesome, man. Yeah. Like, you know, I have like, now I'm extremely happy, but, you know, in the oil field, I was living that life of quiet desperation. I really was. Like, I had a 4-bedroom house. It was a small house, but, you know, still nice. I was technically a landlord since I rented out 3 of the rooms, and I had a good job in the oil field, and nice car, and like short commute. Like, on the outside, everything was great, but on the inside, I was just dying on the inside. You know, like, I was so depressed, man. Like, it just was eating at me. Cause like,
what do you have for people that are feeling that right now? Anybody that might be listening to this right now, that they're in that job, they're in that situation to where it's like, hey, from the outside, you know, it looks like everything is peaches and cream, but I'm like really having a really hard time right now. What advice would you give that person if you could talk to you? As you know, because you were reading this stuff, you were, you know, listening to all of these podcasts and all of that back then. If you could talk to you right now, what would you say?
I'd say just go through the pain, because it does end. You know, like it ended for me. Like, yeah, I talked to some people, like some of my friends who, you know, when you finally make it, or you know, make it. When you make it.
Yeah, own it, right? Yeah, you make it.
People are like, oh, you're so lucky. You're so lucky you did it. Yeah. And I have friends who are like, hey, man, how can I get started? Like, well, dude, just follow my path. You know, start writing 1 cent per word. Like, 1 cent per word. Don't insult me. Like,
right.
You know, that's why I made it.
Right. Exactly.
Because no one else would do it.
Yes.
You know, like anyone out there who's trying to hire writers, like, we can be kind of like herding cats, right? It's just all over the place. Like, hey, write this review article. And you're like, okay, and then disappear. But I was on it, and I was, you know, I never made more than, like, I think 3 cents per word before Empire Flippers, basically, as a freelancer. But with that said, I was making like an extra $1,000-1,500 a month while working in the oil field. So like, you know, that pain of doing that task. I mean, it wasn't fun writing about plumbing articles in Ohio, and like I wrote so many things about roof chimneys and chimney pots, and
you probably learned a lot though. You can probably tell me how to unclog a drain like a pro.
Let me tell you, I know a lot about unclogging these drains, man. But yeah, you know, go through that pain, like. Sometimes to get to the good stuff, you gotta suffer a little bit. Yeah. And we all have those doubts. It all happens, but you just power through it. Like, don't let a day go by. Like, this was one of my big mistakes. I would get busy, sidetracked like we all do. Yeah. And I would have one day where I work like 6 hours on a site, like pumped, I'm ready. It's awesome. Did all the keyword research, start writing the content. Then I let 3 or 4 days go by, and what happens is that candle, that flame of inspiration, it cools very quickly if you don't have any kind of empirical proof that you're succeeding, right? Because like at that point you're making nothing. So I think I would have told myself, every day you need to push ahead. Like every day you need to write a new article, you need to get it uploaded. don't even care if it makes money. Your goal is just to write one new thing and get it published on your site, or whatever your business model is. If you're doing dropshipping, maybe it's to find a new product that you publish every single day, and just keep doing that. Like, the goal isn't the money at that point. It's just the goal of doing.
Yeah. So your success metric in that case, it's not, hey, is this producing income, or are people even seeing this? Your success metric at that point, when you're just starting out, is I'm getting this done every single day, no matter what, without fail. I'm putting up an article every day. I'm making a video every day. I'm looking for that product every day. So every single day, that your gauge of success when you lay down at night is, okay, I did it today. I put up my article. I made that step forward in the direction that I'm trying to make things happen.
Absolutely. And like, when you do that, there were moments where like I wasn't always failing. Like, I had some moments of like, wow, that's great. Like one day, I think it was when I was 19 or 20 is when I first really learned about affiliate marketing, like really learned about it, not my 8th grade behind this AdWords course. And I wrote this like crappy ezine article. This is back when you could do what was called bum marketing, where you posted on ezine articles, send a bunch of kind of crappy links to the article, and you would rank in Google. And I wrote this little article, and like a week later, I got this email that says, "Congratulations, do a money dance. You just made some money." And I opened it up, like, what the hell is this? Like spam? What is this? And it's like, I made $500, and I had slept all day that day. Like, nice. I remember, like, because I sleep, I go into like bear hibernation sometimes when I sleep on the weekends, and I woke up to this email. I'm like, holy shit, I made $500 while I was sleeping. So you have these moments of like, you can do it. But if you don't have those success metrics of, just doing every single day, they're too few and far between when you first start off. You can't rely on that to fuel you all the way. You have to rely on just your own tenacity and your own grit to keep pushing through. And, it's not that bad of a deal. I spent 6 years basically, or, you could even look at it longer because of my 8th grade endeavors. But basically 6 years of my professional adult working life, or 10 years really, because I went out of the oil field here and there, right? So I quit the oil field like never again, and then I'd come back to the oil field like a year later. But I spent like 10 years, I guess, trying to become a digital nomad. And that's a decade of my friends all thinking I'm out to lunch, I'm not going to college, like, you're crazy, all my roughneck friends making fun of me. But now, like, they're all asking me, hey man, how do I do that?
Right. And where would you be if you would have listened to that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'd probably be some mid-level manager with a degree that didn't make sense for my industry, saying like, hey, you should get a degree because I did it and I'm paying for it, so you should do it too.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I had the same thing when, when I was telling people that I was moving over here. I had people saying like, that's horrible, and you're gonna, that's a humongous mistake and all that stuff. But I mean, it's been an awesome experience being over here.
I just had one of my good friends. He super intelligent dude. He's a lawyer. Him and I went to college. I went to college for like 6 months, technically more like 3 months because I dropped out. And the only classes I went to was kung fu and public speaking.
Sure.
And him and
good thing you did that speaking though, because that's one of the things you do now. So so you got some tips. Right.
So I guess my college was relevant for my job. Right. I've been wrong this whole time. But,
and you haven't been in a fight yet, but that kung fu stuff might come in handy too. Right.
Well, oil field, man.
That's true.
There are all sorts of fights.
Catching knives.
Those rigs. Yeah, catching knives for kung fu. But yeah, like he messaged me recently. He is like, I think over $200,000 in debt. He has his own little law firm, and he's going to be in debt for a really long time. And he doesn't even like it. Like, he doesn't enjoy it. And he, back in when we were partying in our college days, he always viewed me as kind of like a fun novelty. This like semi-libertarian guy talking about like, no, you could be your self-made man, that kind of thing. I was all into that back when I was like 18, 19. I was a little bit too much of an Ayn Randian dude. But now I've cooled off from that a little bit. But I still believe you can become a self-made man and all that stuff. And he's like, man. We were chatting on Facebook. I was at this club in Bangkok, so I sent him some pictures and stuff. And he was like, man, you were like 15 years ahead of us. Now we all wish we were doing what you're doing, but we all made the mistake. We thought you were the one making the mistake.
Right. So, and that's how it works out sometimes. And that's the importance of following what it is that you want to do. And like when you have that vision of, hey, I want to, try to do this particular thing that might be outside of the norm. That's why it's so important to, like, if that's something that you feel inside of yourself that, hey, this is something that I want to do, leaning into that and saying, you know what, I've got, X amount of years on the planet. I can at the very least dedicate, a few to trying to make this work out. Yeah.
And it only takes a few years too. I was very fortunate in that a lot of people's families don't support their children's dreams when it comes to like entrepreneurial stuff and all that, because it's so out of the norm for most people. But luckily, my dad, he grew up on this like rural farm in Missouri, basically. Like my grandpa could barely even read. My grandma used to have to sign his checks and stuff. And my dad graduated at the top of his class. And there's this funny story. You'll probably be mad at me that I tell this story, but I think it's really funny, so I'm going to tell it.
Okay.
He got into the oil field too, right? Because he was like in this little tiny factory town in Leopold, Missouri, and like working at this pallet factory, and he just graduated high school, and this old man came up to him and was like, "Kevin, how much you making per an hour?" My dad's like 50 cents an hour, and the guy like laughed and scoffed at him. He'd been here for like 20 years, like, "I'm making 75 cents an hour." My dad's like, "Oh shit, I got out of here. This isn't a good path." So he he eventually left. He was like one of the first people to like really leave his town in a long time, and joined the oil field. And like, when he moved to Texas, because he heard about all this opportunity in the oil field, and remember, like, my dad graduated like second of his class, so like the school systems weren't exactly the best at the time. He goes up to this lady and like, "Hey, where's all the oil rigs?" And Texas, I've been driving all around, I can't seem to find any. And she's like, "What are you talking about?" There's like one over there. And he sees the oil rig, but my dad thought oil grew like corn, so he thought it was
Nice.
like a field of oil crops,
Nice.
Nice. So he never told anyone that story for a long time.
Sure. And he's probably not happy that you just put that out here. Yeah.
But my dad, to bring it back home, my dad worked in the oil field for 18 years. He became a self-made man, never went to college or anything like that. Became this real estate mogul up in Alaska, and like doing incredibly well for his family. And so when I was a kid, like, I always wanted to be like my dad. He's like my best friend. And so the obvious choices were oil field and entrepreneurship. And like, well, I'm not too good in the oil field, but I can try my hand at entrepreneurship. That seems like a much more fun route. And it's interesting because now I'm kind of like an echo of my dad, in the sense that I worked in the oil field for a few years like him, and now he owns a real estate brokerage, and I work for an online business brokerage. So it's weird how things have paralleled there. Yeah. But he was one of my pillars of my support during that depression, all that stuff I was talking about earlier. That really like helped me get through a lot of that stuff. So for anyone out there, if you were going through that stuff, like, look for those kind of people. Like my two people were my dad and my my best friend, the guy who says he's going to chop off my legs.
Yeah. And like you were saying before, about like your ex as an example, how she was toxic, but you did have to, you did kind of lean on her from time to time, also in that situation. But it is really important to make sure that you are around people that are supporting those decisions, because if you, on the flip side, it's also powerful to have friends that'll be like, "Hey, that is wrong." Yeah. Like, be careful with what it is you're doing. Do your thing, but go, ease back a little bit on the speed, right? Yeah. But having people that are supporting what it is that you're doing and all that is extremely valuable. And if you only have, two of those people in your life, lean on them. You know what I mean? Like, sure, because those are the people that are going to support you, and the people that are going to encourage you, to go the direction that you want to go.
It's just like what you were saying earlier. Like, sometimes you're on the inside, you can't see what people are saying on the outside. Like, you as a person, especially when you're starting out and you're full of that doubt, you are on the inside. You can't. Like, you might think you have the skills, but then the doubt creeps in and kills that belief. But your friends, like my dad, always knew I would do something good, like that I would get out of the oil field. He's extremely happy that I'm out of the oil field now. He loves that I'm loving life again and all that stuff. And same with my buddy David. That's my leg chopping off friend.
Oh, okay.
He was like, I would talk to him every single day, and then I still talk to him every single day. And like 6 or 7 months into my job at Empire Flippers, he's like, "Man, I feel kind of uncomfortable about our conversations now, Greg." Like, "What do you mean?" Like, "Well, usually it's just like really depressing stuff we're talking about, but you're like having an awesome life. You're making me envious."
Nice.
So, yeah, man, definitely lean on those. That support is crucial, I think, for growth. Yeah. And if you don't have that, find somewhere where you can have it, like online community.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Facebook groups, Reddit, subreddits, things like that, forums, and also just reaching out to other people. Yeah. Like, "Hey, I'm trying to get into this space or whatever, and I'm trying to accomplish this particular thing. I know that you're currently doing this. I just wanted to, connect."
Yeah, a great example of that. So there's this guy that no one really knows in the SEO. Like, they know him, but he's not like making courses or anything like that. My buddy Mike Dino. So Mike, in fact, I probably wouldn't be here right now without Mike, because him and I became friends on Facebook. I've never even met this guy, and we just joke of like SEO, stupid nerd SEO jokes all the time on Facebook to each other. And he needed a press release writer. This is how I started doing like writing for pennies. It was basically, he's like, hey, do you know, he posted in this group like, hey, I need a press release writer. So I messaged like, dude, Mike, I'll write it for you for free. I mean, you've been my friend forever. He's like, okay, but I need you to read this book first. So he has like a very process outline of how to write a press release. So I read it, I wrote it. He's like, oh, this is great. So I started writing press releases, and he started referring me to everyone. That's actually how I grew my clientele, writing all these cheap articles. Is Mike Dino, you know, he every now and then when I'm drunk or something, I'll send him a message like, I love you, Mike. I wouldn't be here without you.
Nice.
So if anyone knows Mike Dino or needs some stellar SEO advice, add him on Facebook. He's cool.
Nice. Good shout out there.
Yeah.
So as somebody that has went from the oil field, you went through this entire process, and you're like traveling around the world right now, and you're having an awesome time. You know, like I saw you last night. You know, you're like, woo. You know, like you're having a good time. So when you are traveling around the world, do you ever have those moments? I know I was with my brother once in China, and it was in Shanghai, and there's like the needle right there,
yeah.
and we looked at that, but I was standing at the bottom of that, and I was thinking like, holy cow, I'm like standing in China, and you know what I mean, like coming from Cincinnati, you know what I mean, it's just kind of like you know, to where you have those epiphany moments, to where you have that moment in time where you realize how awesome everything is. Do you have that happen a lot?
Oh, all the time, man. Like I'm not a big tourist guy or anything. I like taking my awe-inspiring moments from the ordinary. And there's so many times I was standing on Lake Tan, which is like this main road in Saigon, and there's this like coffee bean I would go and work at, and I would just sit outside and like look at all the swarm of motorbikes just like crossing the road and stuff, and just think like, wow, this is pretty cool. Like I like this.
Yeah.
There's I don't know. It hits me every now and then. Like it hits me a lot. There's this, we held this retreat. You came to one actually, an Empire Flippers retreat.
Yeah, Phuket.
So this is the first retreat we did. My buddy Swiggy and Swiggy works with us.
Yeah.
He did an amazing job coordinating the event. And there was this moment where we had these long tables, and you know, we're in this beautiful villa overlooking the hills of Phuket and the ocean. And these Thai dancers come out, like they did this whole like dancing show, this like cultural kind of show. And I looked at Swig and Justin, I was like, man, this is like, and we had like, you know, a feast laid out before us, everything, while we're eating and drinking and watching the show. Like, this is like what kings and nobles were doing back. Like, I'm such a fantasy nerd, always thinking like fantasy context. Like, this is what like kings and nobles were doing like back in the day, like hundreds of years ago. Now we're doing it like right now in like one of the most beautiful spots in the world. It's amazing. You know, it's like I get those moments all the time. Yeah. I'm sure you still get them too. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, like you're saying, it can be, you know, the grand things, you know, like it being in China, or it can also be to where I'm just like sitting on my balcony at home looking at the mountain, and I'm just like, man, this is just so awesome. You know, like I'm so grateful to be able to have this experience. You know.
Yeah, it's cool. And like I have friends like I have a bunch of Vietnamese friends, I have a bunch of Thai friends, Filipino friends. It's cool, like having friends from all around the world. It's weird, like I can, because of the digital nomad scene especially, I can almost go to any like major city and like run into a digital nomad, you know, like I could go to Prague and there's DC Juntos or whatever, and there's probably one guy that knows me there because I hung out with him in Bangkok or something like that.
Sure. So. I had a guy stop me in regards to that, because you said, you know, one guy that knows you.
Yeah.
As far as Empire Flippers is concerned, I was actually hanging out at Maya Shopping Mall. And I was at Starbucks. They have these outside seats there to where, you know, you can just sit outside of Starbucks and, you know, drink your coffee or whatever. And I had an Empire Flippers shirt on. And a guy comes up to me. He's like, hey, do you work with Empire Flippers? It was funny, but it was just kind of like, you know, just that recognition with that also. So I'm sure, you know, people are recognizing you, you know, in all these places.
I actually had a exact same story, but in Saigon, I was walking through these alleyways. There's this area called Japanese Town or Japantown. And this is where I used to live for a while. And I walked to my place to go get coffee, meet up with my friends. And this one guy, exact same thing. I was wearing my Empire Flippers shirt. And he's like, oh, Empire Flippers. Do you work for them? I'm like, yeah. Like, oh, I just submitted a site for sale with you guys.
Oh, nice.
Like, oh, awesome, man. He's like, yeah, what do you do? Like, oh, I'm the content manager. Like, oh, I love your blog. I'm like, man, I wish you'd comment more.
Right. That's a little side tip to engage on the blog, right? Engage.
Get increased blog engagement through custom made t-shirts. Empire Flipper specific made t-shirts.
Right,
we'll start our merch by Amazon shop here after this.
So, Greg, I also want to talk, if it's okay with you, I also want to talk a little bit about how you got to know Rob.
Yeah, so we hired this one of our business advisors, James Howlett. He runs an Amazon FBA business as well before he came on board with us. And James introduced me to him. It was, I can't remember which event. I think it was the first Nomad Summit, actually, because James and I were here last year at Nomad Summit, and he introduced me to a bunch of people he knew in Chiang Mai. And he introduced me to Rob. I took every now and then we'll do these like EF night outs with like friends and stuff, friends and customers. We'll buy some drinks for them and all that stuff. Yeah. That was one of those nights. So Rob and I had a pretty fun night. And yeah, he's a cool guy, man. Like I loved his energy. He's just like, he's just so gun-ho and stuff. And you know, fast forward a few months later, we decided to scale our content. And one of the things we wanted to do was do a spin-off podcast. And I put it out, and Rob applied, and so did you. Yeah. And I asked Rob a bunch of questions. I really loved his answers. You know, like you know, he really thought about it, and I could tell he was like so passionate about it. Like I didn't want someone who was just, you know, this is technically how you grow a podcast. This is like the technical show or whatever. I wanted someone who was really passionate about this stuff, because this show was meant for like newbies and people like, you know, kind of where I was just a few years ago, to like get inspired and like really move that needle to keep that candle lit until they got the momentum and turned into their own version of a roaring flame, you know, whatever. Right. And I love Rob's you know, take on that. Like he was so passionate about it. And yeah, and he told me about you as well, and I listened to your stuff, and you were also great, and so we decided to do a co-host thing with you guys, because I mean, you're both in Chiang Mai. It worked out great. Yeah. So but yeah, man, Rob, I loved hanging out with him, man. He would do like I'd come to Chiang Mai, he'd cook me some home cooked meals. Like he would always talk about like, oh man, these Thai people, they're getting rid of the best parts of the meat. I get it so cheap. You know? Nice. Yeah. How about you? How'd you end up meeting Rob?
For me, he saw one of my YouTube videos. And he remembered me saying in that video that I was in Chiang Mai. And once he got here, I guess a little bit of time went by or whatever from when he had originally gotten here. But he reached out and he said, hey, I saw your YouTube video or whatever. I'd like to meet up for coffee if you're down for that. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You know, let's do it. So we met up at Starbucks over on Niman. And just kind of, you know, the friendship developed from there. And we had been hanging out for just a little bit, maybe a month and a half, maybe, when he approached me saying, you know, hey, you know, the Empire Flippers is hiring for this thing. I didn't even know at that time, because, you know, I'm in the YouTube thing, right? Yeah. So I didn't even know at the time about Empire Flippers. We said, you know, Empire Flippers is doing this podcast, you know, and they're looking for people for it. I'm going to apply. If you want to, you know, apply with me, then that might be something we can do together or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, you know, it sounds fun, and, you know, all of that. And then, you know, it went from there. But one of the things that I really liked about Rob, you know, when we were doing this show is he would always try to, if you go back and you listen to the previous episodes, he was always trying to really dig into the most emotional sides of people in the process that they had been through. Because one thing that was important to him was communicating to people that wherever they happen to be in that process, that there are struggles, there are things, but you're not alone. Yeah, I mean, that other people are going through these same things, but they've came out of the other side of it. So one of the main messages that he was trying to share, you know, with the show was that, you know, wherever people are, whatever it is that you happen to be going through, essentially keep going, right? Keep learning, keep trying to make your skill set stronger, keep trying to create or make opportunities for yourself, and keep looking for opportunities to try to make whatever it is that you're doing happen. Because the same thing that he would say, and we're going to play the tribute that we made for him here, you know, in a little bit, but you know, some of the stuff that he would say was just about, you know, taking the moment that you have, because we're all here just for a little bit of time. And he's a great example of that right now as well. You know, it's like we're all here for that little bit of time, so it's really important that you you know, that you make the best of it, what you can, and that you do your thing, you know, that you follow your dreams, you follow your passion, so that you can enjoy your life instead of being in that situation that you were in, where you're like, you know, hey, it looks like everything's great, but in reality, you know, I'm having a hard time here, right? Right. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I really liked about him. And he was so he was so caring in terms of he would do meetups here locally. And it wasn't for the sake of, you know, hey, I'm trying to get money off of these people or anything like that, which is a common thing, you know, around.
Very common thing. Yeah.
And he would just go and he would freely give his time. And let's say that he had something scheduled from like an Amazon meetup to where he would go and teach people how to do Amazon for free. At those meetups, he would say, okay, well, it's going to go from 4 to 5, but he would be there until 8 o'clock. You know what I mean? Just like helping people. Like the actual talk would be over, and then he would hang out, you know, and just talk to people one-on-one, answering their questions, and, you know, pretty much take up his whole evening, you know, just trying to help people out. And that, to me, was a really powerful thing for Rob. And I think that it was awesome that he was trying to bring out that same encouragement here on the show.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, man. Like I've heard I met one guy in particular. He got scammed into one of those things where he flew out to Chiang Mai for one of those like digital nomad programs or whatever. And you know, they didn't teach him anything. He's like, shit, what am I going to do? And Rob took him under his wing. And
it wasn't just him.
Yeah,
it was a group of people. Yeah, it was a whole group. Basically, what happened there is they came over here as part of one of those things, like you were saying, and the people that they initially invested in for that just bailed. and they were basically just stuck holding the bag. So Rob said, okay, well, you guys are in this situation. You don't want to go home. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to help you out. And he actually brokered a deal to manage somebody's Amazon thing, right? He brokered a deal for somebody to manage that and actually just pass that right on to them so that they would have that income now.
That's awesome.
So,
I didn't know about that part.
Yeah, so that they would have that income initially, so that they would have a little bit of something coming in, so that they would be able to maintain what it is that they're doing, and they wouldn't have to give up. And I mean, that's huge. Yeah, in my opinion, I mean,
awesome.
that's extremely powerful, and that was an awesome thing for him to do. And with that, he also helped them find a house that they could all share the rent on, so that the cost would be low and all that. And now that place is almost famous, you know, locally.
The FBA incubator,
right? Right. It's almost famous locally in terms of you know, in terms of, hey, if you come to Chiang Mai and you're in that space, this is where you want to go, and these are the people that you want to hang out with. You know,
there should be like a plaque on that house, like dedicated to Rob Fortney.
I know, sure. Yeah. So you know, what he gave to just individuals and to the community as a whole was amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sitting here right now talking to you because of him. You know, because he reached out and he created that bridge. You know, I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah,
he did an awesome
was great
thing.
at connecting, man. He was you know, you used to when I at the height of my depressions and stuff, I would always read personal development books to try to like get me out of it, you know. And every time I talked with Rob, he was like a walking, talking personal development book. You know, he had the one-liners and stuff that get you fired up. It was great, man. He was a very, you know, inspirational person. He always thought like the best in people, and like, nah, man, don't worry about this problem. It's just a little problem along the way. You'll get better.
Sure. So Greg, if somebody wants to find out more about you and somebody wants to find out more about Empire Flippers, and anybody that's listening to this right now, we're going to start closing this out, but please stick around because the tribute to Rob, I want you to hear some of the inspiring words that he said during this show to lift up other people on this journey. But before we get into that, if people want to find out more about you and more about Empire Flippers, where do they go?
Yeah, before I say that, I just, you know, I saw your tribute last night or a couple nights ago at Nomad Summit. I just want to say you did an amazing job on that, Nick.
Thank you.
Really well done. Very moving. As far as getting in contact with me, you know, empireflippers.com. I'm the marketing manager now. Got a little promotion.
Congratulations.
Feather in my cap there. Yeah. And you can contact me at greg@empireflippers.com. If you want to email me, you can add me on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find, and I'm addicted to Facebook, so you can probably message me on there. I'll answer. But yeah, just come check us out at empireflippers.com if you want to contact us.
Okay, awesome. And so now we will go ahead and drop the tribute to Rob. So thank you so much. If you've been listening to this show, thank you so much for being a part of the digital journey, and thank you for being a part of Rob's journey as well. For, you know, anybody that has been listening to this, you know, since we started putting out videos, or even if it was the last episode, or even if you're running across this sometime in the future when it's not updating anymore. But you know, we really thank you for being a part of this journey, and we wish you the best of luck and the most success on the journey that you are on. Do you have any last things that you want to say here before we move into this, Greg?
Just keep going, keep pushing, keep that candle lit.
Okay. All right. So thanks for listening. And now I'll play the tribute for Rob.
What they don't know is they're inspiring me as they do this. And I'm just so excited. You know, I'm literally for that first 30 days, I met with you guys every day. I went and worked with them every day. We had this little co-working space we basically took over. We ended up watching sunset up on the top of Doisa Tep. So
Nice.
it was this incredible day. If you're out there and you're thinking, well, I don't have enough information about that subject, how could I be that? Just get busy learning.
Yeah.
You can stop right now and make a bold decision right now. Greatness comes from doing the small things over and over and over. Do something, get started, and then the magic will open up. I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna quit my job, and you will be shocked at what the universe provides you with that intention that you're actually gonna do it. Be the worst at something, because you're only gonna get better. And by repetition, you'll get better and better and better. The failures that you have, you're learning so much you have no idea that will apply later on. Success usually comes to those who are too busy to be looking for it. Henry David Thoreau. Because you're gonna fail. Like the tenaciness thing is deal, but what you gotta learn right now is that you're ultimately gonna win if you just keep showing up to the game, and that's what we're really gonna do. Don't be afraid to give up the good to go for what's great. Strive not to be a success, but to be of a value. I failed over and over and over again in my life. That is why I succeed. Michael Jordan. There are a billion people out there waiting to hear your message. Successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. There's a bunch of people out there listening right now who've got ideas. You've got ideas right now. I guarantee you're out there, you're sitting, wherever you might be listening, you've got an idea and you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I can do it. You have the self-doubt. But that's that point. Jump off and start on that thing. Be patient with yourself. Self-growth is tender. It's holy ground. There's no greater investment.